All right. So welcome to our final session for the Certification Pathway series. We've been exploring for the last, we skipped a week there, but for the last 4 to 5 weeks, we've been looking at the different certifications that are available to small businesses, from federal programs um, to third-party programs like women-owned and minority-owned. And now today we are going to look primarily at state and local certifications, and we are also going to talk about a couple specialty certifications that didn't really fit into, that they're not federal and that, they're a lot more specific than the women and minority-owned programs. So we're going to talk through all of those, and then at the end, the last third of this program, we'll talk about the how to leverage your certification. So regardless of whether you're looking at any of the certifications we're going to talk about today, there will still be some hopefully useful information for you at the end. So before we get into some of the housekeeping and the content of the program itself, just a little bit about the Small Business Development Centers for those who are not familiar. We are a federal and state funded, no cost, confidential, one-on-one resource for small businesses. We cover, we can assist businesses from, the idea stage, as you're looking to see, whether you're about starting a business or even what business you should start, all the way through exit. So anything in between, whether you're, just hitting your stride as a business owner, you're looking to open a new facility, you're looking to expand your markets, sell abroad, sell to government, which is what we're talking about with the certifications, looking to just maintain sustainable growth, or looking to exit and transition your business to, to the next owner, whether that's within your family or to a completely different, to a partner, or to somebody completely outside. We can assist at every stage of that. And again, no cost, confidential, and one-on-one. So you can feel free to talk confidently about your business, knowing that the advice you're getting is specific to you, and it, again, will remain confidential through, while you're with us. All right. We are also a nationwide program. So we are one of 15 centers in Pennsylvania, and there are almost 1,000 SBDCs across the country. So no matter where you're joining us from today, you'll be able to work with an SBDC that can provide the same basic services, no matter where you are in the country. We cover here at Lehigh, we specifically cover Lehigh and Northampton counties, as well as Bucks County. So if you are joining us from a different part of Pennsylvania today, we're happy to get you connected to your local center. Some housekeeping for today. The webinar is being recorded. The recording will automatically generate, and you'll get an email notification later this afternoon when that gets posted. And I will upload the slides hopefully sometime today, worst case by the end of the week. But they will be there. The chat box is disabled, but you can use the Q&A box for questions. That box should be somewhere near the bottom of your screen. But if you add a question, typically what I do is, if it's related to what I'm talking about at that moment, I will do my best to answer it then. Otherwise, I will either address them when I get to that particular spot in the session, or wait till the end to do so. So feel free to use that Q&A box at any point. I will see those questions pop up here. So like I said, there's sort of 3 parts to today's session. The state and local certifications, which we're going to primarily be talking about Pennsylvania, since that's where we are, but kind of talk about how the process works in general, as well as local certifications and how that works in Pennsylvania as well. We're going to talk about specialty certifications, specifically the LGBTQ plus certification, as well as the disability-owned certification, and the organizations that manage those certifications, and how you can get those, and then how to leverage your certification. So regardless of which of the ones you're thinking about, or that you've applied for, or that you currently have, of the ones that we've talked about over the last 5 weeks, how to make sure you're getting the most of those certifications. So for state and local certifications, like I said, we're going to mainly focus on Pennsylvania. But it's important to note that these are going to be separate programs from basically everything that we've talked about. So states, cities, townships, counties may all have a different program. Some of them may be reciprocal in that, for example, if you have your Pennsylvania certification and you're looking to do business in Virginia, you might be able to get through with less paperwork. But typically, every state certification is going to be a little bit different. Some of them you can only be certified if your business is based in that state. Some of them you can do regardless. So it's important to note that they're going to be a little bit different. They're going to have different terms for all of them. Most of them will have some form of disadvantaged business, minority-owned business, women-owned business, or smaller, small diverse business, which is what Pennsylvania does. They're going to be called all different things, but more or less you're looking at, again, women, veteran, minority, LGBTQ, disabled, any of the different programs that we've talked about. Usually the states are going to accept some form of those certifications. Again, the states do it, same reason the federal government does it, to promote diversity and have a, wider customer base to make sure everybody can participate in state procurement. But again, states are going to be a little bit different. Whereas the federal government has a legal requirement to do X amount of business with small businesses, states are going to be wildly different. I know Pennsylvania, with the Shapiro administration, has increased the amount of money that they want to be doing, to be contracting with small businesses. But there may not be the same legal requirements as there are, for example, as the federal government. But every state is going to be a little bit different there. So Pennsylvania's program specifically, like I said, every state is going to be a little bit different. I've helped clients, I think Virginia, New Jersey, New York, but we're going to mainly talk about Pennsylvania just because that's, with those of you attending are, I think, all from Pennsylvania, or most of you. So this is going to be the one that's most relevant to you. So Pennsylvania really has two certifications, if you will. They have their small and their small diverse business program. And so Pennsylvania looks at all of the ones that I've mentioned so far: minority, women-owned, veteran-owned, service-disabled veteran, LGBT-owned, and disability-owned. So Pennsylvania recognizes all of those all of those different certifications to be part of their program. The difference is, unlike some other states, Pennsylvania does not do their own certification. For example, I believe Virginia, for example, does their own certification process. So similarly to if you were applying to, WeBank or the EMSDC, like we talked about a couple weeks ago, or the veteran-owned program, they are going to do their own certification. So you may need less documents. For example, with Virginia, if you already have one of the certifications, but they're still going to have their own process. Pennsylvania does not do that. Pennsylvania requires you to have somebody else's certification to be considered for this program. And so in a way that makes it easier in one sense, in that you don't have to go through a second certification process, but there is not you can't just get a Pennsylvania certification. You have to have somebody else's already. And you have to meet the small business requirements set by the state, which are a little bit different than the federal ones that we've talked about, which is, either typically 500 employees or 15 million in revenue. Pennsylvania's is a little bit more stringent, which we will talk about, I think, on the next slide. So how the process will work, and I will have links on the next in one of the next slides to those places, is you will need to complete the online verification with the Pennsylvania Department of General Services. They will have every business will have to, whether you're small or small diverse, you will have to apply, get self-certified as a small business first, and then you can add your certification to be considered small diverse. The benefits are that you'll then be opened up to opportunities in state contracting that they might have set aside for small and small diverse. The state has been increasing, again, since the Shapiro administration, has been significantly increasing their efforts to do more business with small business. So they have there's a number of different programs out there that you can participate in, and again, that's continuing to increase as as the state's economic development strategy comes into play. And just because there's been a couple more folks since I started, there is a Q&A box. So if you do have any questions throughout, please feel free to go ahead and submit your questions. Okay, there is a question about, again, yeah, all the slides and recording will be uploaded. All of the ones should be uploaded. I will go and double check. But if there are, I believe I uploaded all the slides, but I will go and double check. If not, I will make sure they're all uploaded. Okay. All right. So for Pennsylvania's program, like I said, the requirements are a little bit different than the SBA. So you have to be a for-profit U.S. business, which that part is not different. Then you have to be independently owned, which means you cannot be a subsidiary of another entity. So that can be, there are some, we have some clients where it's, the parent business will own another business to, or you might have a subsidiary that is specifically veteran owned, that kind of thing. For Pennsylvania, it has to be owned by people. It can't be owned by another entity. You cannot be dominant in your field of operation, which for most small businesses is probably going to be true. But that is a little, that's different than the SBA's regulations. The biggest difference is that you cannot have more than 100 full-time equivalent employees. So that's where, again, SBA can be either or depending on your industry. For Pennsylvania, it's both the employee and the revenue requirement are across all businesses. So it is less than the SBA's employee requirement, which is typically 500. So Pennsylvania, you can have more than 100 full-time equivalent employees. And for revenue, you cannot exceed 3-year average gross revenues of $47 million. So that is higher than most of the SBA ones. But again, so that's what, it's a little bit, it can be more restrictive, but also it does have some more flexibility in terms of for employees, but it has some more flexibility in terms of revenue. So which certifications does Pennsylvania recognize? And this is why when I've been talking through some of the other certification sessions, primarily mentioning certain organizations over others, not because we prefer them, but because if you are looking to get, get certified as well as, with the, as say women-owned, minority-owned, whatever, and then also looking to get the PA small diverse, they only accept certain ones. So that's part of the reason why I've been focusing on specific organizations. So for example, for disability owned, that's through Disability In, which does the certification for that, and then for LGBTQ owned is the National LGBT Chamber of Commerce, which we will also talk about in the next section. For minority owned, they will accept either the NMSDC, so the minority owned business certification we talked about a couple weeks ago, or if you are part of 8A, they will accept that. Or if you are part of the Unified Certification Program. So we didn't talk a lot about that one. If I don't, I may not have a slide for that actually, but I will add one in to what I upload. So that is a Department of Transportation specific program. So if you're in the transportation industry, so primarily looking at, you would do work with PennDOT, for example. So, road construction, bridge work, those kind of things. There is a specific certification program for transportation related businesses that you can go through there. So it is another type of disadvantaged/minority owned program. It is free. It is also very complicated, similar to, probably closer to 8A than it is to the minority owned program. But the link there should take you to the website for that. But that is another option as well. For women owned, they will accept the WBENC certification. So if you were on that one, if you were on the women owned session a couple weeks ago, there's the SBA recognizes, I think, 4 different entities. So the WBENC, the National Women's Chamber of Commerce, the El Paso Chamber of Commerce, and I think there's a 4th one, which I can't remember offhand. But Pennsylvania only accepts WBENC. So if you want to be certified women owned and small diverse in Pennsylvania, you have to go through WBENC. Again, if you're through the 8A or the Unified Certification Program as a women-owned business, you can use that qualification as well. For veteran-owned, the Pennsylvania has to update their website a little bit because, as I mentioned during that session, they just within the last 4 to 5 weeks, since the beginning of October, renamed the program. So it's not VetCert anymore; it's MySBA. But if you do get the SBA's veteran-owned certification, you can use that. Or if you have a disability-owned certification as a veteran through Disability In, you can use that as well. What's important to note for Pennsylvania is you only need one. Because I know there have been questions throughout other sessions of, can I apply for multiple certifications? Can I be, if I am, if I am a minority, if I am a veteran, if I am a woman, can I get all 3? Absolutely, you can. But if your specific goal is to be certified with the state, you only need one. And it does, and from the state's perspective, it does not matter which one you have. So you are either small or you are small diverse. So if you have any one of these certifications that are listed here, you can be a small diverse business. So there's not specific set asides for women, minority, veteran. It's diverse or not diverse. So from that standpoint, from the state's perspective, it does, there's not different evaluations, which one you have. So that's something to take into consideration as you're considering the markets that you're looking at. And that's, again, part of your strategy is determining which certification or certifications you want. Again, Pennsylvania, you only need one. So whether you have 3 or you have 1, it's going to count the same for Pennsylvania. So the application process, as I promised, there would be links here at some point. Just can remember which slide. So the first step is you will register as a supplier with the Commonwealth to obtain your vendor number. So this is similar to, I believe when I talked for the veteran one last week, that you have to register in SAM for the federal system. This is the state equivalent of that. So you'll register through the PA supplier portal, you'll get your vendor number, and then at that point, you'll be able to go through the PA certification process. So you can register as small or small diverse, and their instructions, those links will take you to the instructions for both. The timeline is much quicker now, especially compared to the other certifications, because you already have the certification. So there's not, so you don't have to go really through an extra process. So if you're registering just as a small business, it will take however long it takes you to apply to go through the application process. That's how long it takes. Once you do it, you're done. And at least from the last time I went through it, with a client, all you have to do is really adds a couple, pieces of information, employees, revenue and whatnot. And then you have to upload the first page of each of your last 3 years of business tax returns for whatever you have. So if you're less than 3 years, you only have to do however many years you've been in business. But that's it. It's a very simple process. And then you'll have your small self-certification. If you are going for small diverse, at the end of that process, when you do the small part, you will then upload your certificate, upload whatever proof you have. For example, for WeBank, you get an actual certificate. 8A would probably be your approval letter. Whatever they're looking for that specific certification, you will upload that into the system, and then then the state will have you verified within less than 10 days. That process could usually take sometimes up to a month or two, but they've done some great work at streamlining that process. And so now it'll be less than 10 days and you'll have your small diverse certification as well. Again, that's one of the perks of Pennsylvania not doing its own certifications. But at the same time, you have to have somebody else's to begin with. So a little bit on local certifications. This is not something we get into a lot, but it does happen. And part of it, so local certifications, these are going to be ones issued by municipalities or cities. So townships, counties, cities, any of those entities. Again, every state is going to be a little bit different in who offers those. Part of the reason why we don't talk a lot about it in Pennsylvania is because typically, and it's always possible it could change, but most municipalities in Pennsylvania are not permitted by law to have set aside programs for small diverse businesses. It's a quirk in the in state law. Again, they might be making changes to that. I have not heard, but typically they have to go with the lowest price technically acceptable. So that means you're competing against everybody. So that's part of the reason why we don't talk a lot about it at our center here. However, the cities, for example, Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, do have their own certification programs because they're not lumped into that municipal law. So if you are looking to do business with the city of Philadelphia, the link to their certification page is there. Similarly with the city of Pittsburgh, if you are looking to do business there, that you can get more information there. So again, you can get access to different local government contracts, and some of them do have networking events as well that go with it. So again, it's just another opportunity to branch out and have more opportunities to do business with different entities. So that ends the part on the on the state and local certifications. Again, Pennsylvania is pretty straightforward. You just have to have one of the other certifications that we've talked about to do it. So it's a relatively easy process once you have your other certification. So it makes it pretty straightforward there. So the specialty certifications, like I said, we didn't include these in the other sessions only because there wasn't necessarily a proper fit for, talking about women and minority owned. We had that section, we had the veteran section, we had the federal section. So these certifications don't necessarily fit into any of those. So we're going to include them here to make sure we cover them because we do have clients that have gone for these. So first is the LGBTQ plus owned certification. So these are both, this and the disability owned one are similar in process to the WeBank and the NMSDC process for women and minority owned, in that they are third-party certifications. So these are not federal, these are not state, and additionally, Pennsylvania does, consider that for diverse, but for the federal government, there isn't currently no set aside for LGBTQ plus owned or disability owned unless you are a service disabled veteran. So that's part of the reason, again, why there wasn't necessarily a proper fit for these in the other sessions. So the National LGBT Chamber of Commerce is the certifying body. So you can go through their website and that link will take you to their certification page. Again, very similar to the other programs, 51% owned, managed, and controlled by LGBTQ plus individuals. And you have to be independent from a non-LGBT business. So that means you can't be owned by a non-LGBT owned business. You have to be, you have to be yourself. Similar application process. There's an online application. You have to upload supporting documents. They'll do a site visit and an interview. And the application fee is a little bit steep. It is $899 to apply for it. However, if you are a member of an affiliate chamber of commerce, which you can click there to see the different options that are there. If you're already a member of that chamber of commerce, the application fee is waived. So if you're not a member, it is a pretty steep application fee. But if you're already a member of one of those chambers listed there, then it's cheaper. And I believe it's $500 or $600 to renew each year. Again, similar to WeBank and NMSDC, you get access. They have special partnerships with different corporations, as well as networking events and mentorship opportunities. So there are, besides having the certification itself, there are other benefits to being part of that program. For the disability owned, so this is, they do have a specific veteran program, but this is if you are a disabled business owner, but you are not but you're not a service disabled veteran trying to qualify for that program. Disability In is the certifying body for this. So you can go there for more information about the program. But similarly, 51% owned, managed, controlled by individuals with disabilities. They do have a list of the different disabilities that qualify. It's a pretty wide range, but you can go to their website specifically and see which ones are eligible to see if you would qualify. Similarly, again, submit an application with proof, with verification of your disability. Provide business documentation. The application fee is $300, and I believe it's it's $300 per year to renew. And again, same thing. They have partnership opportunities with different corporations. They have different networking events, different opportunities to collaborate, and mentor, and all of that. So again, those are two additional options if either of those apply to you. And again, both would be eligible for the Pennsylvania Small Diverse Business Program. All right. So the last section, like I said, most of these have not taken an hour, so we'll get some time back at the end. But to leverage your certification, what's important to note is, all these certifications, they're really only going to be helpful if you use them properly. Just having the certification, as I put here, an important note about the certifications are not a magic wand. If you get one, a business or a government agency is not going to call and say, here, I have $1 million in contracts, how many of them would you like? You're still going to have to be able to market yourself. You still have to go network. You still have to do business development. You have to do all of the same things that you would have done before. Your certification might get you in the door. It might get you a meeting, or it might get you access to an event that you wouldn't have had before. But again, it's not going to contracts are not going to fall upon your business just by having the certification. So you want to make sure you're still marketing your business, not your certification. And the reason for that is, especially for government, but even for the private sector as well, they're already likely doing business with somebody who does what you do or very similar. And so what they want to see is, what different value do you bring than our incumbent, than who's doing the business, who they're doing business with currently. Certainly having that certification can be a benefit in that maybe they're just doing business with a small business, and if they, hey, I can do business with a small service disabled veteran-owned business, great. But they still want to make sure that you're able to provide at least the same value, if not better value, than who they're doing business with currently. So make sure, again, while the certification is certainly important, and is certainly a marketing addition, you want to make sure that you're still marketing your business and your value over the certification. So importantly, you want to make sure that you develop a proper marketing strategy surrounding your certification. So you can update your marketing materials. If you're permitted to use certain logos, you can do that. Each organization, each certifying agency is going to have its own rules on whether you can use the logos and how you can use them and all of that. But certainly having that on your marketing materials can be a benefit. you'll want to revise your capability statements, especially, and that's for those who are not doing government contracting currently. Capability statement is basically a one-page corporate resume that lists sort of your, lists your, kind of a little bit about the business, your capacities, your capabilities, your past performance, to be able to market towards, that's typically how government contracting marketing works. So you're going to want to add, update that to show that you're certified, but you can update any of your existing marketing materials, your website, social media, any of that. You want to make sure that you're updating that there. Certainly highlight your certifications, like I just said, website and social media. You can certainly do a press release to get some attention that way. And make sure you're targeting your outreach. So understanding who's buying what you're selling, target those procurement officers and buyers. And make sure you're including your certification in your proposals and in your marketing materials. So that way they know that, again, again, they might be able to, if you were just, if you're just trying to bid as a small business before, but now you're a small women-owned business, there might be additional opportunities there for you. Making sure, especially for a lot of the third-party certifications that we talked about, so WeBank, NMSDC, the LGBT-owned, disability-owned, there's going to be a lot of opportunities for networking, matchmaking, training, all of that. Make sure you're taking advantage of that, because a lot of these, again, you're paying anywhere from $300 to almost $900 a year for these certifications. So you want to make sure you're getting your value out of them, because it's going to probably take at least a couple of years to be able to land your first contract. So you want to make sure you're still getting value out of those certifications. So make sure you're attending the conferences, trade shows, matchmaking events, webinars. I know WeBank, for example, I'm on their mailing list. They do, like every month they'll have how to do business with X entity. So they'll have, they might have a utility, they might have a large, a different kind of large company. So that way, kind of going over how to do business with them. Join the chambers of commerce, other industry associations to build those connections. Take part in the professional development opportunities that they offer. And especially if they have any type of mentor protege program, those can be invaluable, because you're going to be partnered with either a larger business or a business that has already gone, has kind of already done it. And, that can be invaluable, in terms of building your knowledge and building your skill set. Make sure you're utilizing all the certification directories that you can. So, for example, all of the third-party certifications will have their own membership directory. But as we discussed during the federal session, making sure that you're registered in SAM, which is the federal contractor database, as well as the SBA's Dynamic Small Business Search, or DSBS. Those links should all be in those sessions slides there. And if you register for SAM, it will prompt you to register in DSBS as well. But those are ways, again, to make sure that your business is everywhere it needs to be. Additionally, once you register with Pennsylvania, you'll be in that database as well. So just making sure, wherever you're listed, that you're making sure your profile is up to date, that everything is accurate. Again, it doesn't mean necessarily that it's going to lead, it's not, it doesn't mean that somebody's going to search the database and find you and give you a contract, but it's a way to make sure that if, for example, an agency is saying, hey, we could really use, we're really short on our HubZone goal. Let's find a HubZone HubZone business. And, are there any, within our region that we're trying to do, that can do this thing? And so again, the chances of that happening are slim, but it's, they're non-zero. So you want to make sure all of that is correct. Because they need to also show that they can prove that there are at least two businesses that can, if they're trying to set it aside for say women-owned, they can prove that there are two women-owned businesses that can actually do the request, whether it's manufacture, product, provide a service, whatever. Respond to opportunities. So if things come out, sometimes governments will send out requests for information, or RFIs. And so those aren't proposals, but they're, again, doing their market research to see, are there businesses that can do this thing? And through that, they, for example, if a couple of veteran-owned businesses reply, they might set it aside for veteran-owned. So it's important, if these opportunities come along, that you're responding to them if they're relevant. And again, just make sure, that all of your profiles highlight your what makes you unique, your differentiating factors, as well as any past performance that would be helpful. The biggest, past performance is really the biggest thing for government and large business. They want to know that you can handle those levels of projects. So anything that you can highlight that's relevant to that is certainly helpful. Pursuing contract opportunities, again, this is, we've done this as a whole session before, so this is condensed it to just a slide. But, make sure that you're looking through the different opportunities that are out there to see what is relevant. Some of them you can sign up for notifications. Others you may have to do the searches a little more manually. Most of them, at least for the government sector, you do not have to pay in order to find opportunities. Some private sector ones, I think you do have to pay some sort of membership to be, or some sort of fee to be part of their database. But for government bids specifically, you do not have to pay in order to bid. So you can go to SAM to look at federal opportunities, the state's contract website to look for state opportunities. There's other, certainly other resources to find, to find more local opportunities as well. And again, set up alerts where you can have them come right to your email. You may have to tweak your keywords a little bit. That's why it's good to do some manual searches, because what you may call your product may not be what the government calls your product. So, for example, if you're a fencing company, you would call it fences. But, the federal government could call it, property barriers or something like that. So you want to make sure that, you're doing searches to make sure that you're seeing all of the opportunities that are relevant to what you do. Again, one thing that we recommend to our clients a lot is, even if you're not planning to bid anytime soon on a project, take a look at a bid, see what's involved, understand that process, and kind of start building that library of potential responses or documents or things that could be helpful down the road. Government bids are not easy. They're a lot of work, and a lot of times, especially in the beginning, you're not going to be successful. So it can get frustrating, but the more that you kind of look at the bids, get familiar with them, understand what they're looking for, you can kind of help build yourself a library of information that can help you with those down the road. And certainly the opportunity to collaborate. You can, you can team up with other small businesses to do joint ventures or to offer subcontracts to other businesses. Again, to expand the availability of contracts that you might be eligible for, as well as, again, just kind of building that network, to increase your potential for opportunity. So there's been a lot of links. I've put links to other resources throughout the rest of the presentation, so I'm not going to repeat them here. But certainly the SBDC is here as a resource for you as you go through this process. So please feel free to reach out if you do have questions. But that is the end of this series, both of today's session and the series as a whole. Like I said, this session should be up sometime this afternoon. The slides, as for the question I got earlier, I will make sure all the slides are uploaded. I'm pretty sure they are, but I will make sure today's slides also get uploaded by the end of the week. So I will stay on for a minute if anybody has additional questions, but thank you all for attending. Hopefully you found any of these sessions helpful, and you'll be able to watch any of those on demand if you want to go back and see any of the previous sessions. So thank you for attending, and have a great day.